it breaks your heart, but if you did it correctly, it should. And I've talked to other people that have done this. I've actually had an opportunity to talk with other colonels and other chiefs that have made this decision, and they said you're not getting away from the fact that it's going to hurt to walk away. If you love it that much, it's going to. But you're right. Hopefully, you step away. You've created an organization that is ready to thrive. That's looking forward. That's planning for the future, and hopefully, you've inspired and been able to help develop leaders that are ready to jump in and take it to the next level.
Colonel Rapich, thanks for joining me here in the briefing room. State police colonels, highway patrol colonels are near and dear to my heart as a former director of S&P. So I'm glad you could join me today.
Absolutely, appreciate the opportunity. It's great to be here.
Now, we're going to jump into you're retiring soon. It's been made public. You've had a storied career, and we're going to jump into that in a second. But we are several weeks out from the Charlie Kirk assassination, which occurred in Utah. Not asking anything specific about the events of that day and the investigation, the subsequent investigation, but as a law enforcement leader, it does seem that the threat environment has changed. Just curious your thoughts about how you think about these public events, the rise and threats on politicians and other public officials, and how law enforcement officials have sort of changing how they approach these events.
Sure. Obviously that was an incredibly horrible incident, and when we're talking about this particular subject, about as bad as you can imagine, and definitely not something we have seen here in the state of Utah, at least in my career. In time period, and we didn't want to see that as well. And, the Utah Highway Patrol is part of the Utah Department of Public Safety. It's one of the biggest divisions in the Department of Public Safety, but state troopers are the roles that state troopers play within the Department of Public Safety permeate that entire mission, including the investigations. So our state troopers in our investigations bureau and our intelligence bureau, our statewide information and analysis center, very involved in that. And it was an incredible lift. A brand new Commissioner Bo Mason, just a few weeks on the job, and right in the middle of that. And it was a pretty significant event and a big lift, and cooperation and everyone coming together and making a successful outcome in that investigation has been paramount. But to get to your point, when you're looking at these kinds of things, and we're really in a new environment that's really, we've seen probably just kind of ramp up and continue to intensify over the last 5 years or so, where political gatherings are becoming more and more of an environment that has to be looked at from a threat perspective. These major significant incidents like the Charlie Kirk incident are happening more frequently than what we've seen before. And so when it comes to threat management, that has very much become a very big part, along with probably the other agency, the Utah Department of Public Safety, Utah Highway Patrol, the way we approach the protection of our elected officials, the way we look at, our state capitol, the way we look at public events, the way we look at free speech events, all of those things where we've seen where, there's vulnerabilities in those, and we have to take that seriously. We have a threat management unit within the Utah Department of Public Safety, which it's tied really closely with our investigations division. It's part of our statewide information analysis center. They're very collaborative. They share a lot of information with local and federal agencies as well as across the country. They're looking at everything. When we have an event, every event they're looking at, what's the event about? Who's the organizers? What's the focus of it? And they're looking at it from the perspective, is there any threats to safety with that event? And, when we get that information, we've got people that are really good and gathered, spent a lot of time getting the skill set, knowing how to run those threat models, knowing how to do the analysis and come up with, kind of a good analysis of what we're looking at. And we do that with just about every event anymore. And that gives us some direction and ability to kind of, model our response and decide what our staffing is going to be and decide what kind of resources we need, all from very much a perspective of keeping people safe. As an entire event, specific people within that event. And that's something that will continue to evolve, I think, long after my career is over with and well into the future. It's very much changed the environment, how we deploy our resources, what we put our efforts into, and how much attention we pay to these kinds of events.
Yeah. You mentioned sort of depth and breadth of things that the Utah Highway Patrol are involved in around threat management, but just in general. And you are part of the Utah Department of Public Safety. Uh, Maybe we can clear up some misconceptions here of people who truly don't understand S&P agencies and state provincial agencies, which could be state police, could be highway patrol in name. But I think some people might hear Utah Highway Patrol or Wyoming Highway Patrol or anything that has highway patrol in their name, and they think just highway patrol. That's no longer true.
Not yeah, not even close. In fact, you talk about state provincial police and the opportunities to come together as colonels. One thing we frequently talk a lot about is how state troopers are taking on roles that they've never taken before. Always been to that into some plate, but taking the lead on those, providing support resources, whether it's exactly what we're talking about with threat management, with free speech events, with major events. We've got resources, especially here in the state of Utah, where we've got a large urban area along the Wasatch Front, but then a vast majority of our state and most of our counties are very rural environments where a big event, a significant incident, things like that overwhelm everybody's resources immediately. And as state troopers, we support local agencies. We receive that support. We look for opportunities to complement and share resources. But yeah, when we look at from the Department of Public Safety in the state of Utah, and there's a lot of agencies that are organized similarly, but the Commissioner of Public Safety is part of the governor's cabinet. He's responsible for the entire department, and it's 13 different divisions that have a lot of public safety perspectives. The Highway Patrol being the biggest division and the most law enforcement visible, and a very large mission across the state. But when you talk about what state troopers as a whole in every capacity, whether it be the Highway Patrol and our traditional role with that, or specialty units that are supported by the Highway Patrol, whether that be tactical response or public order response or motors or even dive team, and all of the things that we provide across the state, and work really closely with our sheriffs and chiefs here within the state of Utah to make sure that ultimately the state of Utah, the communities we serve, the people that that trust us to be able to be there, to have response and be able to take care of the things that needed to be done, we can do that the best job possible. And I think we do that incredibly well here in the state of Utah and across the Western United States, just because that's the way we're made up. We're very, very cooperative. We rely on each other. There's a lot of crossover between roles and responsibilities. And I think that we're, as every law enforcement agency is, we're redefining what our capabilities are. We're redefining what our troopers or officers or deputies are involved with within the communities. And a lot of that's just kind of as our communities grow, as our state grows, and new challenges and new opportunities and new resources and technology are coming online, and the ability to actually be able to provide that service in a whole the best we possibly can.
Well, speaking of redefining and things evolving over time, now one reason I wanted to have you on was you're retiring in a couple of weeks. You probably know the countdown as we're recording this. It's very soon. I mean, you've had a long career, great career. First, let me just say thank you for your service. And I mean, you've had a lifetime of service. But I've seen many leaders come and go. I mean, chiefs and sheriffs and colonels. Like, question, how did you know it's time? Like, how did you know that it is time to step away from a job that you love?
Wow, that's an incredibly complicated question, and it's taken 33 years to figure that out. That's kind of where we're at. But I've had the opportunity to be a Utah State Trooper and work as a law enforcement officer in the state of Utah for 33 years. I'm over 33 years now. 9.5 of those years, I've had the opportunity to serve as the Colonel of the Utah Highway Patrol. Obviously, a role that I never anticipated. Starting a career coming out of the U.S. Coast Guard and looking for an opportunity to get into law enforcement. Started out as a dispatcher with the Department of Public Safety, and then became a trooper, and wanting nothing more than to be a state trooper in the Utah Highway Patrol. I'm a second generation trooper, so I had an opportunity to obviously see the firsthand and the pride and the devotion and the enthusiasm that comes with that, but also see have really close interactions with a lot of law enforcement officers and state troopers. And you're talking about the opportunity to be able to be involved in hard, important work that makes a difference, that when done correctly and done right, people appreciate, and it serves our community well, and stakeholders look at that, and bearing the responsibility of the authority that the people we serve give us to be able to act on their behalf and in their best interest, and to be there when they need us most.
Hmm.
As the colonel to kind of, even though you step into that role, you're not doing that every single day, but you're supporting that and making sure troopers and deputies and law enforcement, the agencies in general have the ability to do that. And you get to represent, the challenges they're having, the successes they're having, the things that are important, and being able to kind of be the face of that. And so, I guess to answer your question, it would be great if you could do that forever.
Hmm.
The intensity and the enthusiasm and the drive and everything that comes that, being able to do all of that requires. But, at some point you start looking, okay, when is the time that we've got incredible people part of our organization, like every law enforcement organization does. Great leaders, a lot of enthusiasm, a lot of new perspective, and the time comes when it's okay. When do you step out of the way and let the
Hmm.
next generation hopefully jump off from a place that is better than what you found it, that's in a good position, that's got an organization ready to take on new challenges and drive farther, and bring new enthusiasm and new perspective and new energy and new people into that. And really, probably for the last 3 years, I've been looking at, okay, when does that time come? When is it not just my opportunity to represent this, but when do we give that to someone else? There's been administration change within the Department of Public Safety that kind of created some opportunities, and so yeah. So I guess to kind of wrap that up, it's exciting to see what happens after I guess when you have to grow up and you no longer can be a Utah State Trooper and step into the next thing. It's exciting to see where the organization I love dearly and the law enforcement profession here in the state of Utah that I would have been proud to be a part of and always will be and look forward to. And then a little bit heartbreaking as you step aside from that, from being able to work every single day with the greatest people that you could possibly associate with. Being a part of a job that you look forward to every single day to be there. Obviously, there's issues that you don't wish you were dealing with, but hard things need to be done when important issues need to be addressed, when significant incidents are happening, to be able to be among the greatest people in the world, the very best there are, and doing things that are important to the community. And it'll be interesting to see what it's like after that. And so let's see where we're
Yeah, I
at.
think, one thing I've sort of noticed over my career of being involved in public safety inside and out, uh, there are not many. I mean, being the leader of a law enforcement organization, whether you're a colonel or a chief, or even a sheriff, like sheriffs are elected, but still, like you're appointed by someone if you're a chief or a colonel. And it seems that there aren't that many, and it's a tough job, like without a doubt. 24/7, you're responsible for everybody underneath you. There's just a lot that goes on that not many get to walk away on their own terms. So when I see somebody who's walking away on their own terms, that they know that is, they built the right team, they're ready to hand off the baton, and et cetera. Like, that is something I don't think a lot of law enforcement leaders know is like when it is time to walk away. Cause I know it's tough and it's personal, not just professional.
And it breaks your heart that there's one thing it breaks your heart, but if you did it correctly, it should. And I've talked to other people that have done this. I've actually had an opportunity to talk with other colonels and other chiefs that have made this decision, and they said you're not getting away from the fact that it's going to hurt to walk away. If you love it that much, it's going to. But you're right. Hopefully, you step away. You've created an organization that is ready to thrive. That's looking forward. That's planning for the future, and hopefully, you've inspired and been able to help develop leaders that are ready to jump in and take it to the next level and and be a part of that going forward.
Well, you certainly inspired me as I've known you for, I don't know, probably over 10 years now, and watching you work, like, again, I just can't thank you enough for your friendship. And also I know the citizens of Utah and the Utah Highway Patrol are grateful for your service. Now, speaking of loving the job, you've loved it for a long time. Your father was a state trooper, rose to be a captain. I think it's pretty cool that I read that he was able, your wife pinned on your badge, I believe, and your father was able to pin on your colonel's insignia. But this is something you wanted to do since you were a kid, correct?
Yeah, it's kind of interesting. I tell this story a lot when actually talking to new troopers, and given when they graduate the academy, you get the opportunity to kind of talk about what they should expect in their career and what they have the opportunity to be a part of and what they should be able to look forward to. And I tell the story about when my father was a trooper and I was a young kid. He would come home on break sometimes, or I'd go out there and get in his car and pretend to be stopping people and issuing tickets and then just everything about it fascinated me. And I don't think I ever lost that. That was early when I was a really young
That had,
boy. So I
it
guess
had to be fun. That had to be fun to be a kid and run out to your father's patrol car and sit in
it
it.
really was. And just being, I remember my mother a long time ago. Just the fact that she was proud of what he was doing, and she
Mm.
talked about what he was doing all the time. And he would come home talking about being involved in really big things and critical incidents and helping people and being there when really horrible things were happening and bringing calm back to that and bringing the safety back to a really horrible incident. He shared that a lot, and I was always fascinated. And so I guess it was fortunate as a fairly young youth, knowing what I wanted to do, knowing what I wanted my career to be. Joined the U.S. Coast Guard because it had a law enforcement nexus to it. Kind of had a service, obviously a large service perspective to it, and so did that kind of preparatory to being in the Utah State Trooper. In fact, I love that career. If I hadn't wanted to be a state trooper so badly, I would have stayed in the Coast Guard, but I very much did. And yeah, I had actually had a chance to serve 16 years with my father, and we were actually both captains at the same time.
Oh, wow.
The only time we did that, and then when he retired, and then yeah, and so and still every day I stop in and see him when I can. He usually goes down and has a morning uh, coffee with a bunch of the older guys and kind of get lined out on what's going well and what's going right, and
Mhm.
why are you doing these things, and it's been very fun to have that part of the family. But even
Was
bigger
he
than
still
that,
was he still a trooper when you were a captain when you became colonel? And did
no,
he
he
salute? And did he
retired.
salute
So
you?
we were both captains when he retired, and it's yeah, it was pretty amazing.
That is amazing. I just
Never
wondered
never
if
thought it'd be
he
this
had to address you if he had to address you with "sir" at some point after all these years of you addressing him as.
he made a joke. He said that he was going to retire before he ever had to salute me, but he wouldn't have done that anyway. But
Yeah,
I
and
should
I
have
mean,
seen him this morning.
and every generation looks back on sort of the new generation coming along. Like, I mean, there's a lot that is the same. And you just sort of talked about some of it, like why you joined, what it means to be a Utah state trooper or state trooper across the country, serving others and everything else. So just curious, like what do you think is different though when you go talk to these young recruits or graduates when you're standing in front of them versus when whoever the colonel was at the time when you graduated, like what are the major differences today that you think about?
One thing I always share with them is that they're starting a career in law enforcement at an incredible time. Law enforcement, the role and the mission of law enforcement continues to expand. Even though we see a lot of things that kind of point the other direction. I personally think, especially here in the state of Utah, and I think pretty much everywhere, even though there's critics and there's challenges, and then there's high visibility and expectations of law enforcement. I think there's never been a time when the expectations of law enforcement have been higher. And I don't think there's ever been a time when we meet those expectations that it's been more appreciated by the people that we serve. And we actually see that manifest over and over again in a lot of different ways, where we have community members, business leaders, community leaders, take the opportunity to really put emphasis on how much they appreciate the job that law enforcement does, and to be able to meet those expectations and be able to provide the services expected as the world becomes a little bit more crazy than it was before. Really significant incidents seem to be happening with quite a bit more frequency than what they were before. The challenges that come with that, I think people see that and they appreciate it. And as some of the challenges within the communities happen, the expectations for professionalism and conduct and capabilities and uh, confidence in all of the things with law enforcement seems to go up just even proportionally. And I think law enforcement is meeting those expectations, and it's good to do that. So I share with them that you're at a time when the law enforcement profession is growing in every way possible, from mission to perspective to appreciation to roles and all of that, more exponentially more than ever has been before. I started in the Utah Highway Patrol. We were writing incident reports on yellow legal pads, and we were issuing paper citations, and we had books that have been. Today, I mean, everything's done electronically. Our troopers have the ability to have information at their fingerprints, tips that we never even dreamed of before. It's giving them the ability to leverage opportunities to intervene when criminal incidents and criminal activity is happening in ways we never had before. We can share information that we've never done before, and we need it. There's times when that's very, very crucial. It's very critical. And we're seeing, technologies like RMS systems and information sharing and, video surveillance and and LPRs and things like that, that when employed correctly, um, absolutely leverage our ability to be effective and keep our community safe, even when really, really challenging things happen. And we have troopers that are bright and intelligent, and they understand technology. They've grown up with it. They know how to leverage it. They know how to understand it. And it's really, really fascinating to see them engage this profession with that kind of a background. Very, very much different than it was 33 years ago.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I can't even imagine, given the sort of rate, the exponential rate of change that's happening today with AI, like a trooper class you swear in this week, what it's going to be in 3, 4, 5 years in terms of just the technology that will be at their fingertips. And you made a comment about what they have, the information they have at their fingertips. Like I watched a presentation not too long ago saying that even the poorest farmer in sub-Saharan Africa with a cell phone and a connection has more information than President Bush had during the Gulf War. Like that's incredible, and Afghanistan and everything else. That's incredible to think about today, and that's not that long ago that President Bush was uh, the president of the United States. Like to think that even the poorest farmer, all he needs is a phone and an internet connection, and he has that information at his or her fingertips.
No, you're absolutely right, and it's an incredible advantage. It also very much complicates and creates challenges within every part of society. Obviously with law enforcement, criminal activity is very much leveraging that same technology in every way that we are, whether it's information sharing or AI or the internet or social media. That's it's permeated all of that. The way that criminal proceeds are being transferred, the way information is being shared, the way people are being victimized, all of that is it requires a new generation of law enforcement officer that is capable and fluent and engaging and understands that kind of thing as well, because that's the environment a lot of law enforcement is taking place in now. And it can create for a chaotic world, but also creates a lot of solutions as well. And you talk about all of these informations, and you look at some of the challenges going forward. Is how do we leverage all of the capabilities, all of the technology, all of the information that's available, and do it in a way that still keeps the confidence of the people we serve, keep the confidence of the stakeholders, keep the confidence of the policymakers. And that's something that absolutely the expectation is to be able to balance when we're utilizing LPR, we're utilizing video surveillance, we're utilizing AI technology. Are we doing it in a way that's very much focused with a criminal predicate, in a way that meets the expectations of the stakeholders we have, and keeping ourselves accountable to that and making sure we know where that lane is. And that's something that is going to continue to be defined for a very long time.
Yeah, and when it does come to a highway patrol agency or state police, I mean, traffic safety, highway safety is paramount. That is the bread and butter. You've seen a lot just in recent career. As I'm sitting here getting ready to formulate the question, I'm thinking about legalization of marijuana, which is not legal in Utah, I don't think, but it's legal in almost every other state now. The advent and sort of proliferation of electric cars. Like never today, everybody just Teslas and everybody else are out there, but that had to rethink how you responded to crashes and the dangers around batteries versus combustible engines, and now with driverless cars. So just curious how you think about like the evolution of highway safety and how state police or highway patrol agencies had to keep up. Because I can't imagine. I flew into Phoenix Airport a few days ago, and I'm watching the Waymo cars come, and these are the driverless cars, and they do that here in Phoenix. And like a year ago, you'd see one or two.
Yeah.
Today, it's probably 20% to 25% of all the cars that are coming in for pickups. I'm just picturing a year from now, like it's gonna you won't even use Ubers. Like it's just crazy. So I'm just curious from a highway safety standpoint, like how do you address these like the evolution of technology and trying to keep the highway safe?
Sure. And the driverless car you know future is one I don't think we've still completely been able to quantify in either direction. I will say this though, I've actually had that question a lot. All of these technologies, especially, they have the potential to really leverage our ability to be safe and to increase traffic safety. I'll share an analogy. One of our chief pilots one time when we were, we also the Highway Patrol and Department of Public Safety. We have an aero bureau. We utilize helicopters, and we do some incredible things with those as well. And as the aero bureau, early when I was first a colonel, we were, looking at kind of really expanding that mission and taking on some new capabilities that we've never done before. And the chief pilot at the time, when he was trying to help me understand all this, he told me, he said, every time you add new technology, a new capability, or something that you haven't been able to utilize before, you exponentially increase your capability to be safer and to do it better and to do it safer than you ever had before. And he said, proportionally, you also increase your ability to get yourself in trouble, but with the same technology. And he says, so that, the key is to balance out those two. You can look at that technology with traffic safety. Driverless cars, or at least automated vehicles, and their ability to actually, to keep you in your lane, to identify, potential collisions forward, and preemptively take action to be able to keep you safe when something unexpected happens, very much increases our ability to be safe. I think that, anybody that's utilized that technology can see it when you were backing up and you didn't back into something because your car stopped you because it sensed that you were going to do that, or you stayed in the lane and you drifted out because it pulled you back in there. So, and that's just one part we're talking about. So all kinds of opportunities to avoid those unforeseen little incidents that really, that really impact traffic safety when horrible crashes happen. When traffic's doing 75 miles an hour and everything's fine, when something unexpected occurs. And so, obviously the potential for safety and increasing safety and keeping everyone safe is better. At the same time, you can leverage that same technology to get yourself in more trouble. To actually rely on driverless features more than what they're capable of doing, or more than what you should do, or actually putting that forward. Increasing your speed because you get more comfortable because of the vehicle feels safer. And so at a higher speed, it feels safer than it did before, and you feel more comfortable driving 80 or 90 miles an hour, where before you wouldn't have felt that way. And so all of that kind of has that two-edged sword, is how do we take advantage of the previous, while at the same time not letting the latter really kind of take control of that as well. Beyond that, also, when you're looking at some of the technologies, one of the challenges we have here in the state of Utah, and a lot of other agencies that we really dug into, was wrong way drivers. They're not that frequent, fortunately, but when they do happen, the potential for really horrible and terrible crashes is really high. They frequently involve intoxicated driver. As we've looked at this testing, tried to figure out, okay, what's the problem? Impaired driving is the dominant problem with that. Confused drivers, for whatever reason, falls into that also. Roadways are designed for high flow traffic efficiency. And sometimes if someone's not paying attention, it's easy to end up in the wrong place because you're not paying attention where you're going, because we've got really, really efficient, intersections and roadways that are designed to get a lot of traffic through quickly, and we're safer and we benefit from that. But they can set an opportunity up for a mistake as well. But you look at wrong way technology, and we've leveraged technology to be able to identify in problem areas when a wrong way driver occurs, and we get notifications quickly, so we can actually respond and try to intervene with that as fast as we possibly can, and before we kind of lose control of it. We're seeing some success with that. We're looking and trying to figure out how do we engage the auto industry to identify within a vehicle if it's going the wrong way. You can do it on a golf course. If a vehicle gets outside of the golf course, it shuts itself down.
That's nothing drives me crazy when I get a little too close to the green and the golf cart stops.
Could we leverage the same technology for that as well? Could we leverage technology with mapping and things like that to better inform people of hazards that are coming into, whether it's stop traffic or whether it's a traffic accident or whether it's debris in the roadway? And that's happening to some degree. But some of that connectivity it could be really, really advantageous to do that. In pursuits, is there a way to utilize technology? And you and I have actually had lots of conversations about vehicle pursuits. Really challenging in an urban environment where you may be chasing someone for a really aggravated violation, but they very quickly start posing way more of a threat than what you're dealing with in the first place. And we don't have a lot of options, and the ones we have are really expensive. Is there a way to simplify law enforcement to be able to utilize technology to shut those pursuits down and stop vehicles from doing those? All of the things that we're looking at in that, and I think we're just on the cusp of seeing a lot of those things come to reality, and a lot of really, really great companies that work with law enforcement, understanding the problems, the challenges we have to be able to solve some of these problems that are significant issues. And that's just from a traffic safety perspective. And
Yeah,
look at it from
I think I agree. I think we're on the cusp of some just incredible things to many of the issues that you just talked about. But we do get, you and I talk about vehicle pursuits a lot. As to, like if you ask did a survey, which we do. We talk to people all the time, chiefs and colonels and sheriffs, like, hey, what are your top 2, 3, 4, 5 issues? Vehicle pursuits is going to be in that top 5 for sure, maybe in the top 3. I think we're on the cusp of getting somewhere on vehicle pursuits with some advanced technology. And same thing with wrong way drivers. That just doesn't make sense to me in today's world, that that we can't figure out other ways to learn, and stop a wrong way driver. It does remind me though, but the bread and butter. I'll pose it as a question, but it seems when I was at IECP, the deputy executive director was Jim McMahon, longtime superintendent in the New York State Police, and he would always say, it doesn't matter, like the 3 things that a highway patrol, state police agency need to care about in terms of reducing, crashes and improving highway safety are speed, belts, and impairment. And by belts, you meant seat belts. I assume that's still probably at the top of the list in terms of how you guys think about it as well.
So you cover those 3, and then put drowsy driving in there, and you probably covered 80% of the fatal crashes, at least.
Yeah, now, I read an article when you were sworn in, so I don't know if it's still true. I'll ask. Do you still pull over cars when you go to and from to work, or do you still get out there on the road with your troopers?
Yeah, I can still make a traffic stop. I can still let dispatch know where I'm at and communicate effectively. And the good thing is, if I start getting into something like an impaired driver, or it looks like there's going to be arrest, I usually get a lot of help pretty quickly. I think maybe they do that so that I don't mess it up too much before they have to take it over. But yeah, probably not as much as I would like to, but yeah, that's still part of being a state trooper is making stops. And when someone's going incredibly fast or doing something really, really crazy, I drive an unmarked vehicle, so you get a chance to be there when a lot of people are like, man, I wish somebody would see that. And we do that. But stopping and talking to the troopers, hearing what they're doing. You talk about, and you've covered a lot of leadership perspectives in law enforcement. And you've even been a leader yourself in a lot of different ways, both through IECP and in the industry. Probably one of the most crucial things to be effective is to make sure you have perspective and you actually still understand what are the people, the troopers, the deputies, the officers, the people that are out there actually getting done what we're here to do, why our organizations exist, and they're actually getting the ones getting that work done, and they're being there when hard things need to be done. Making sure you still have perspective of what they're dealing with and how it's working and how they're employing it and how it can be improved. And, getting a chance to go out to a DUI blitz and when we're doing a special enforcement, go out and do DUI enforcement with the troopers and see how that works. That's, something that's gotten way more complicated and a whole lot more complex since I was doing it 33 years ago to start with. And, making sure when we're making decisions, when we're making funding, looking at funding appropriations, when we're doing strategic planning, we're doing all of that. It's from the perspective of what do our guys and ladies on the road that are doing amazing work, what do they need? And if we ever lose perspective of that, then we probably won't be able to stay in the position very long, and the organization is not going to be as effective as it can be.
And you can only find out by being out there talking to them, seeing what they do. I don't. What's your when you get on the radio? Are you HP1? I'm not sure what in Utah. What
so we're kind of interesting. We actually have 10 of the first 10 badge numbers in our badge numbers are administrative numbers that are assigned. The governor is badge 1, and the deputy commissioner is badge 2, and then my assigned badge number is badge 3. But after that, we change our badge numbers about every 3 years, and so they're all seniority based. And so badge 11 is the first actual issued number. So whoever's badge 11 is the most senior person in Utah Highway Patrol. And so the number I use this issued number is 15.
But I imagine though, when they hear you're pulling a car over or you're out there, there's a lot of people paying attention to whatever you're doing.
I think they're probably thinking, okay, let's get over there really quickly so it messes it up too badly. But usually I don't get in too much trouble.
Well, Colonel, I ask this question of everyone who's come on the podcast, and we've talked about a lot. But since you're coming up to the end of your career, I'll leave it very open. The question is usually, what's something that perhaps are not talking about or thinking enough about when it comes to public safety that we should be. But I actually sort of leave this open ended to you as you sort of wrap up this great career that you've had. Any sort of closing thoughts that you may have as well.
So I'll preface this with the same thing I always had: is every single thing we do needs to be promoting our officers, our troopers, our deputies' ability to do their job effectively and to meet the challenging environment that we ask them to be effective in, and be ready for significant incidents, like I said, that are just happening with way more frequency than they ever have been before. When I first started my career, an officer involved shooting, and especially a trooper involved in a shooting as a single agency, was something that didn't happen very frequently. Maybe once every 2 or 3 years. Not too long ago, when we were looking at things, I was looking at just an 18-month period of time, and we had 12 troopers involved in shootings in an 18-month period of time, where either they had to shoot at somebody or somebody shot at them. So the frequency in which they're dealing with those kinds of things, or major incidents, or we've talked about public threat environment, all of the things that we're asking them to do, and to do it, basically do it absolutely perfectly every single time is the expectation. We don't always hit that, but to meet, to do it absolutely the way it's supposed to be done every time, and in a very, very visible, highly visible environment, highly scrutinized environment, and to do it well. And so we need to make sure everything we're doing is setting them up for success in there, and more importantly, making sure they have the ability to do that and have the confidence that they know they can do it well, that they can be successful, that they're going to be supported, and that they're going to be safe. And they can do that, and they have the confidence they can get through that, they can do it safely, and accomplish what needs to be done. Within like probably every other agency, we put a lot of effort into strategic planning within the Department of Public Safety, within the divisions and the Highway Patrol specifically. And I think that's one thing that we constantly can't do well enough at, is as we're sitting here every single day dealing with the challenges that are really punching us in the nose right now. Are we looking 5 years in the future? What are going to be the things that are going to be important 5 years in the future? What are going to be the funding needs we need? What are going to be the personnel issues? What are the challenges and the issues and the opportunities that we're just starting to realize now, whether it's through technology or through staffing or through traffic safety or whatever it is, or public safety, that we're just starting to see now they're going to be a very big part of what the future is. And are we planning successfully at that? And are the things we're doing right now, when we're talking about report management systems, when we're talking about technology like LPR, we're talking about the vehicles we drive and what we're training our officers to do, are we setting ourselves up to be successful not only today, but 5 years from now? Because we've all seen how rapidly this environment changes and how quickly new issues can become incredibly big challenges or big opportunities as well. And making sure we're setting a culture up and a platform up to where we can not only recruit new officers into the profession, which every agency will tell you is way more difficult than it was ever has been before. When I hired on, the Highway Patrol would put a ad in the newspaper, 1,600 people show up to apply for 10 positions. Today, recruitment is something we are constantly doing, and we're leveraging every way we can to show a new generation how incredible it is to be a law enforcement officer, how incredible it is to be a part of the public safety environment and the public safety profession, how amazing it is to be a part of something way bigger than yourself that matters and involves really great people. We try really hard to educate that. We recruit all over the state. We're doing it every single month. We're testing constantly. And you have to do that to be able to get the positions you can. With all that effort put into them, how do we also retain those officers once they get 5 years on, once they get 7 years on, once they've developed specialized skills that make them incredibly valuable in really, really focused and technical and really demanding issues, and make sure we're not losing that capability. So I could go on and on and on about that, and it's going to be pretty awesome to see here in 3 weeks when I'm no longer leading this agency and not right in the front line of that. Hopefully find a way to be complementary to it at some point, but to see how not only my organization but the law enforcement profession as a whole is going to meet those challenges, because they will rise to the occasion, whatever it is, and they'll meet the expectations of the people and the citizens and the communities that empower them to look after them.
Well said, and I do agree. It's an incredible profession, and I say this all the time. Despite all the changes that we're seeing and we will see, the men and women of law enforcement will certainly rise to the occasion. So, Colonel, first of all, thank you again for your just incredible service, not just to the citizens of Utah, to the men and women of the Utah Highway Patrol, but to the profession. You are a national leader, I know your legacy will continue to live on. And thank you for your friendship. For sure, I certainly learned a lot from you, and I obviously will continue to learn from you and be friends. And thank you for coming on the podcast.
Hey, thank you so much for being here. It was great to be here. And thank you, Mike. You've been a great friend and an advocate for law enforcement for a long time.
Thank you, Colonel. Thank you for joining us for this episode of The Briefing Room. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please go to wherever you get your podcast, YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and hope you'll like it and also hit subscribe. And as Colonel Rapich mentioned, he is an avid reader of the weekly briefing, which this podcast is a part of that. If you'd like to become a subscriber and get the weekly briefing emailed to you every Monday morning, if you go to policebriefing.com. There you can see all of the podcasts. You can also see daily updates on news and policing, but you'll also see the weekly briefing where you can check them out, all prior issues, and you could hit subscribe there as well. So I hope you enjoyed it, and I hope to see you back here for the next episode.